يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعلمون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا فضربنا على آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا ثم بعثناهم لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى وربطنا على قلوبهم إذ قاموا فقالوا ربنا رب السماوات والأرض لن ندعو من دونه إلها لقد قلنا إذا شططا هؤلاء قوم اتخذوا من دونه آلهة لولا يأتون عليهم بسلطان بين فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us for these Muharram lecture series presented by Hussain Youth. We kindly ask you to follow us for up-to-date info on our programs and events through the Instagram page and WhatsApp. Please note that the lectures are available after the end of the program on our YouTube channel. And without further ado, please welcome Sheikh Ahmed Bazi with a loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن عدوهم. Let's have another loud salawat على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن عدوهم. Let's have a third one for the love of أمير المؤمنين وقائد الغر المحجلين إلى جنات النعيم بأعلى الأصوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله الحسين صلى الله عليك وعلى الذين استشهدوا وحلوا بفنائك يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء يا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن السيد الوصي السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. Peace and blessings be upon you, Ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussain, and on your blessed family and those who stood with you on the day of Ashura. Peace and blessings be upon you and on all those who love you, Ya Aba Abdullah. For the love of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain, let's have a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's begin again with another salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad for the love of Fatima alayhi salam. Allahumma salli. The last one for the love of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, whose day is today, Friday, with another loud salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. Last day we spoke about the Hussaini identity. And we said for a person to be a Hussaini, for a person to build the identity that Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam intended for all of us to build, one must understand Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. One must understand the character of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, and ultimately take from that character and mirror it so that they can become someone who emulates Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam. And we said the way that a person emulates someone else and builds their identity by mirroring that person is to get to know that person and their character and their persona and who they are. And so we spoke about the generosity of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam. In the same way that we can take from Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam, and the way that we analyze him through his generosity, through his courage, obviously, we are able to take from Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam when we look at his stance on the day of Ashura and what he did on that day and how he was ultimately able to win the battle, even if he didn't openly win the war. But here's the thing, my brothers and sisters. When we come to Ashura, when we come to the revolution of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam, many of us know of the events that happened on the last day, the 10th of Muharram. If you're more in depth into history or have a broader understanding, you may know of the events that happened in the last 10 days, beginning of Muharram, to the end of Muharram. To the 10th of Muharram, rather. If you have a more in-depth understanding, you may know what happened maybe a month or two leading up to the stance of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain on the day of Ashura. But the fact of the matter is, my brothers and sisters, the revolution of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam began long before that. And for us to understand Karbala and allow it to play a profound role in our lives, we must understand Ashura and Karbala and the revolution from the very beginning, and understand and know what happened in the very beginning and what led to Ashura, and how Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam was ultimately led to Karbala to take that stance. As in, it's not like Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam woke up one day, he said, hey, I don't really like this guy Yazid, and just found himself in Karbala a day later. No, there were events that happened before Yazid even became the Khalifa that ultimately led Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam to Karbala and take a stance on Ashura. And many of us, my brothers and sisters, because of our ignorance of the events that happened before Karbala, before Ashura, many of us see Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam as this man that right when he saw Yazid or right when he saw Muawiyah doing what he did and taking the decisions that he took, the first thing he did was put his hand on his sword. And so we tend to see Imam al-Hussain as this freedom fighter that resorted to the sword when others didn't, when others before him did not. When Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam didn't resort to the sword, it's as if Imam al-Hussain then took the decision to finally use the sword to get what he wanted. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam began his revolution not by the sword. He began it with something else. And we'll only know what that something else is when we delve into the events that happened and transpired before Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam stood up to Yazid. Rather, when Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam was going back and forth with Muawiyah, the father of Yazid. When we know of those events, we will know how Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam began his revolution, and ultimately, what the first method Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam used to revolt with, and that method ultimately leading Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam to Karbala. So we will look at these events and ultimately see the method of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. But before it, aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's have another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala. And the third and last one for the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Jameel. So let's look at what happened. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out the live streams and trying to make it all work at the same time. So just be patient with me, please. Jazakumullah khair. So listen to what happened. It said that the events that took place didn't begin with Imam al-Hussain and Muawiyah. Rather, they began with Imam al-Hassan and Muawiyah. So listen what happened. Please pay attention to me. It said Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam had a conflict with Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan stands up to Imam al-Hassan when he declares himself to be the Khalifa after the death of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Some events transpired, we'll leave that to another lecture, until Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam was not left with any supporters or very little supporters. And so Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam had to make a decision. What was his decision? Or what were the two ultimatums that were left with Imam al-Hassan? Either I fight with the small amount of supporters that I have, I get wiped out, and my supporters get wiped out. Or I allow Muawiyah to sit on the chair of Khilafah, and I allow Muawiyah to expose himself. Who is Muawiyah, the father of Yazid? And let me give you just a brief background about Muawiyah and compare Muawiyah to Yazid for you so you can understand the context and understand why Imam al-Hassan made that decision, which was a genius decision. Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan, my brothers and sisters, was seen as one of the Sahaba and was seen as one of the close or companions, normal companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And one thing about Muawiyah, my brothers and sisters, was he was very cunning, very sly, very sly. He was able to manipulate the people and make them think that he's religious and he wants what's best for the ummah, wants what's best for the nation, the people of Rasulullah, the nation of Rasulullah. Yet, behind closed doors, he would plan. Behind closed doors, he would conspire to do what is best for him and his family and to ultimately keep the khilafah for himself. So the people saw Muawiyah in one light. He showed one face to the people, but behind closed doors, he had other plans. His cunningness and his sly attitude and his sly methodology and method was so profound that he was able to control the masses. He was able to control the masses even when he was openly saying, I don't care about you, I don't care about your religion, I don't care about Islam, I don't care about Salat, Sawm, and you're going to see. To the degree where Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam one day is sitting with one of the companions and he's telling him about al-aql. The person asks him, what is the intellect? What is al-aql? And so the Imam alayhi salam says, al-aql ma ubida bihi al-Rahman wa ktusiba bihi al-jinan. Al-aql, the intellect, is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worshipped through and ultimately is what will lead you to paradise. So the man, the Rawi, the narrator, he says, what about Muawiyah? Did he have al-aql? As in Muawiyah was known to be very smart, very calculated, very cunning. Did he have aql? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, no, he had an-nakra. He had the worst of qualities. And it was ash-shaytana, slyness, cunningness, the devilish mind that is able to manipulate and change and make things seem in one light, but they are in another light altogether. He was able to have two faces and show himself in two ways and ultimately get the people with him. And on the other hand, get what he was trying to achieve and get his goal, achieve his goals, his alternative goals. Knowing this about Muawiyah, we see Yazid. Yazid was the opposite. Yazid was openly a fasiq, openly would drink, openly would play with monkeys and dogs, openly someone who disbelieved in Islam altogether. Disbelieved in Islam altogether. Where he says, Layta ashyakhi bi badrin shahidu. He says these couplets of poetry in front of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam when they're in Damascus, where he says, I wish my forefathers can see what I've done to the progeny of Muhammad. فَلَا وَحْيٌ جَاء وَلَا وَحْيٌ نَزَلْ. No revelation came down. No revelation came to Rasulullah. I wish my family can see what I've done to this man named Muhammad. فَلَا خَبَرٌ جَاء وَلَا وَحْيٌ نَزَلْ. No message has come down and no revelation has come to this man named Muhammad. I wish my family can see what I've done to his progeny. So Muawiyah was cunning, showed one face, but behind closed doors he was planning. Yazid was open. Jameel. How was Imam al-Hassan going to expose Muawiyah? He was going to say this, listen, take the khilafah, but abide by these conditions. First condition is that you follow the sunnah of Rasulullah in the Quran. Second condition is that if I'm alive at your passing, when you pass away and I'm alive, you give the khilafah to me. This is Imam al-Hassan speaking. If I'm not alive, it goes to my brother al-Hussain. Lastly, or one of the conditions, another one of the conditions, you swearing at Imam Ali on the pulpits must stop. It said for 70 years, if not more or less. For a huge amount of years, a long amount of years, decades, the Imam Ali alayhi salam's name was slandered on the pulpits. Imam al-Hassan put that as one of his conditions. This must stop. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam put these conditions down, signed, and had Muawiyah sign as well. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam stepped aside and allowed Muawiyah to destroy himself with this khilafah that he was fighting and killing for. Muawiyah sits down as the Khalifa. Muawiyah, in one of his first sermons as Khalifa, what does he do? It said he stands in a place called Al-Nukhayla, and he tells the people, what me and Al-Hassan have agreed upon in the treaty is now under my feet. I did not become the Amir. I did not become the Amir to have authority, or I did not become the Amir for you to pray, nor did I become the Amir for you to pay zakat. I became the Amir. I became the king, the Khalifa, so I may have control over you and dominate over you. He exposes himself with his own words. When Muawiyah becomes the Khalifa, he begins committing crimes against the Shias. He doesn't fulfill any of the conditions. Jameel, what happens? Listen. The Shias start to send messages to Imam al-Hassan, start to send people, groups to Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, asking him to stand up against Muawiyah. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam is loyal to the treaty. He's loyal to the treaty. He's not going to betray the treaty. So he refuses. These same groups start to come to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. Muawiyah is still alive. Imam al-Hassan is still alive. They tell him, listen, Muawiyah is committing X amount of crimes. He's doing this, he's doing that. We have to stand up, we have to revolt. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, he says, I do what my brother has done, and I take the opinion of my brother, Al-Hassan. The treaty was signed. When this man passes, then we will see what we can do. When Muawiyah dies, then we see what we can do. Jameel. It said these people keep coming to Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussain. They keep sending him messages until about 9 years or so after the treaty, Imam al-Hassan is killed. By whom? By Ja'da bint al-Ash'ath, who was the wife of Imam al-Hassan. Who was she sent by? Muawiyah. I'm telling you, he showed one face, but behind closed doors, he was planning. He sent Ja'da bint al-Ash'ath to kill Imam al-Hassan. She ultimately kills Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. When Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam is killed, these same groups of people, they start to send Imam al-Hussain again letters and people telling him to revolt against Muawiyah. And it said there would be groups coming in and out of the house of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam trying to convince him. Until two prominent Shia figures were sent to Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, from Bani Hamdan. And Bani Hamdan was a Shia qabila, was a Shia tribe that helped Imam al-Hassan and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. So they were loyal to Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam and loyal to Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. The two prominent figures were Muhammad ibn Bishr al-Hamdani and Sufyan ibn Layla al-Hamdani. They came to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam and they said to him, it's time for us to revolt. Look what he has done to the Shias. Look what Muawiyah has done to your brother. Look, and they start to speak of the crimes of Muawiyah. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam says his famous words. He says, I want for each and every one of you to become hilsan min ahlasi buyutikum. I want each and every one of you to become a carpet in his home. Don't move until I tell you to. When this man passes, then we will see what to do. It said Muawiyah goes on a killing spree. What does he do? It said Muawiyah starts to find the prominent Shia figures and persecute them. He goes to a man by the name of Hujr ibn Adi. You know who is Hujr ibn Adi? Hujr ibn Adi was one of the close companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He finds Hujr ibn Adi, who was also one of the lovers of Ahl al-Bayt. It said he kills Hujr ibn Adi in a place close to Damascus in Syria, and his maqam is still around till today. He kills Hujr ibn Adi. No problem. He finds a man by the name of Amr ibn Hamq al-Khuza'i, who was living in Basra at the time. He sends his governor, Muawiyah, sends his governor in Basra to persecute, to find Amr ibn Hamq al-Khuza'i and kill him. Amr ibn Hamq flees to a place near modern day Mosul and is captured there. You know what they do to Amr ibn Hamq al-Khuza'i? They capture him and his wife. They cut the head of Amr ibn Hamq al-Khuza'i and put it on a long spear and go through the streets of either Mosul or Basra to send a message to the people not to stand up in front of Muawiyah. And it's said that it was the first head that was ever put on a spear in Islam to send a message. It's not Yazid that started this. It was Muawiyah that started this. And it was the head of Amr ibn Hamq al-Khuza'i. You know who Amr ibn Hamq al-Khuza'i was? Another companion of Rasulullah, companion of Imam Ali, companion of Imam al-Hussain, and a lover of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. The wife of Amr ibn Hamq, she was taken to a prison in Syria. She was put in that prison with men guarding her jail cell. Narrations say, historians tell us, that she was the first woman in Islam that was imprisoned with a male jailer or a male guard. It was not Muawiyah that began this. It wasn't Yazid that began this. It was Muawiyah. He went on a killing spree. He had no more limits. No more limits. Until ultimately, he chooses his next in line, his heir, who was a young boy by the name of Yazid. Why do I say boy? He was actually maybe in his 30s, maybe in his late 20s, maybe mid-30s. Allah Alam how old he was. But he was a boy because Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam called him a boy, because he acted like a boy. You know the likes of Yazid. You know what Yazid ibn Muawiyah was like and how he was. It said he would drink, he would play, he would listen to music, he would watch dancers and have dancers in his home and women and foreign women in his home. He would play with monkeys and play with dogs. He had no limits, he had no restrictions whatsoever. This was Yazid ibn Muawiyah, a boy. Until Muawiyah appoints his son as a Khalifa. And now I want you to pay attention. Marwan ibn al-Hakam, one of the governors of Muawiyah, he sends a letter to Muawiyah telling him the groups are coming in and out of Hussein's house. I fear that Hussein is going to revolt against you, ya Muawiyah. So see what you're going to do. Muawiyah, listen what he does. He sends a letter to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, telling him, we know of the groups that are coming in and out of your house. If you speak against us, we will speak against you. And if you plan against us, we will plan against you. He says, we don't want you to be the reason why the nation of Muhammad splits apart. Not the nation of Rasulullah. Nation of Muhammad, this guy that came in sometime in Arabia and he made himself an empire and conquered the world. Not Rasulullah. The nation of Muhammad. This is how Muawiyah writes. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam reads the letter and he responds to Muawiyah. Listen to what he says. He says, a man like you is teaching me what righteousness is. A man who kills Hajr ibn Adi and kills Amr ibn Hamq al-Khuza'i. A man like you who took it as their habit to kill the righteous ones is lecturing me about righteousness. You come and you put Yazid as your heir to the Khilafah. A boy, he calls him, a boy that drinks alcohol and plays with dogs. Know that your punishment is coming, Muawiyah, and your day is coming near. Muawiyah, he reads the letter of Imam al-Hussain. Look what he says. Subhanallah. He says, now I see that there is an anger, a resentment in the heart of Hussein for me that I haven't noticed before. Subhanallah, it's as if he did not commit the atrocities that he committed before. Subhanallah. Again, two faces. So then what happens? Now Imam al-Hussain is openly speaking up against Muawiyah with that staunch response to Muawiyah. What does Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam do? He wants to declare the beginning of his revolution. So you know what he does? He stands up. Gets himself ready and goes to Hajj. And then Hajj, who attends the Hajj? The Muslims from around the Arabian Peninsula, the man from Yemen, the woman from Iraq, the person from Medina. They're all coming towards Mecca. And amongst those people are the most prominent of the Muslims, primarily al-Muhajirin and Ansar, those who were with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from day one that are still alive, and their progenies and their family members. So the prominent people of the Muslim empire are all coming to Mecca in this mawsim, in this season for Hajj. So Imam Hussain alayhi salam wants to declare this the beginning of his revolution. So know what he does? The narrations say he stands up in Hajj and delivers a sermon. He delivers a sermon. It's going to be the beginning of his revolution. What do you think Imam Hussain alayhi salam is going to say? Imagine you are going to predict for me what Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam is going to say in front of the people. Do you think he's going to stand up and say, take your swords and put them in the air, raise them in the air? If you want the likes of Muawiyah off this throne. Is he going to come and tell them, get your horses ready, we're going to go to Muawiyah and call for him to resign? If not resign, then we are going to kill him. Do you think that Imam alayhi salam is going to tell them, get your armor ready, for the battle is about to begin between me and Muawiyah, and I have armies of men, some in Kufa, some in Basra, some in Medina, waiting just for my one command? Do you think Imam Hussain alayhi salam is going to begin his revolution like this? Watch. Listen to the words of the Imam. Listen. This is Hussain. This here is Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam. Look what he says. He says, you know what this man has done, Muawiyah. And you know the crimes that he committed. I want you all now to listen to my words and write them down so that you may tell the people back in your cities. If I'm a liar, call me a liar. And if I'm truthful, then spread this message. You know what he does? He begins to recite the ayat in the Quran that speak of Ahlul Bayt. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. He begins to recite the ayat and say, this one came down in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen. This one came down in honor of Fatima. This one came down in honor of Al-Hassan, Al-Hussein, in the progeny of Hussein. He begins to tell them that the Quran and its ayat came down for us, Ahlul Bayt. And he begins to remind them of Rasulullah's words for Ahlul Bayt, telling them of Ahlul Bayt's right on this ummah and that they are the rightful khulafa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. The riwayah says he didn't leave a hadith, nor did he leave an ayah that came down speaking of fadl, the merit of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and the right over this ummah, unless he recited it. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, did he begin his revolution calling people to their swords and their weapons and their horses and their armor? Did he begin with something else? He began with something else. You know what he began with? He began by educating them. He told them, before I call you to a revolution with your swords and your armor, before I try to call upon people that don't know what I'm calling for, how about this? How about this? Educate yourself on my message and understand what I'm calling for. Because before me, there were those who stood up and the people were not ready for them and they were betrayed. If you want to revolt, if you want to change this nation, don't begin with anyone other than yourself. Educate yourself. Before the swords, the intellects. Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam was trying to say this. The revolution is of two types. There's the internal revolution in yourself, in myself. And then there's the external revolution, which is changing the world. Standing up against tyranny, standing up against oppression. The internal revolution is first. And the internal revolution is comprised of two things, 2 points, 2 questions you must answer. The what and the why. Listen, Here's the application to the Imam's words and the Imam's stance. Listen. The what? The what? What is your message? What are you calling for? What do you believe in? In today's world, my brothers and sisters, people jump on the bandwagon, as we say. They call for something they don't know. They call for something they don't understand. If the masses are going one way with their pitchforks, they're going to hold their pitchforks and walk with them. They don't know why. And it's a common phenomenon against youth. Common phenomenon against our young brothers and sisters to call for something, to believe in something and not know why. What is it that you believe in? What is it that you're calling for? You want to change, or I want to change. I want the revolution to begin with myself. Then let me educate myself on what I'm calling for. I want to change the world for the best. But I myself don't know what this message is calling for, what the message is. Education, my brothers and sisters. You want to tell me, Ahmed, but I don't like to read. No problem. I don't like to read sometimes. I'm in Hausa and there's days that I don't want to pick up a book. Every week, my brothers and sisters, finish a lecture. When you're going to work, when you're coming back from school, on the bus, on the subway, wherever it is. Even if the lecture is going to take you a week to finish, you're going to listen to 10 minutes a day or 5 minutes, 7 minutes a day. No problem. No problem. Finish a lecture a week. Listen to a lecture. Don't let the education just be in Ashura. Educate yourself on what Imam al-Hussain was calling for. That is Islam. That's Islam as a whole. That's Islam as a whole. Education, my brothers and sisters. For Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, you know what he says? He says, the person who acts without basira, without knowledge, their actions, even if they intend them to be good, is only taking them further away from the goal that they intend to arrive at. It only takes them further. Their actions towards their goal only takes them further away. A person who acts without knowledge, without understanding, without knowing the what. Without knowing the what. Listen to their words. Allow their words to enter your heart. The only way you are going to allow them to enter your heart is to listen to them. It's to find them. It's to find them. And you don't know. Let me tell you something about the words of Ahlul Bayt. You don't know. One word can change your life. One word can change my life. Can change everything about me. Can allow me, will allow me, and will allow me to get rid of the bad habits that I have. Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you the story. Listen closely. It said Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam was walking one day in the middle of the night. He walked by a house and he could hear from the house songs and dancing. There was a party essentially going on in the house. The house was owned by a man by the name of Bishop. As he was walking by, a woman comes out of the house, a servant. She puts the garbage on the side of the road. Normal situation. Imam al-Kadhim looks at her and he says, this man who owns this house, is he a free man or a slave? She looks and says, no, he's a free man. Imam says, yes, true. If he was a slave, he would have listened to his master and walked away. She goes back. Bishop looks at his servant. He says to her, I sent you to put the garbage out. Why'd you take so long? She says, I met with this man. Either she said, I met with Al-Kadhim, or she described the man and Bishop knew who he was. Or she just described the man. And he said to me, this man in this house, is he a free man or a slave? And so I said to him, no, he's a free man. And so he replied and said, yes, if he was a slave, he would have listened to his master. All of a sudden, Bishop realizes what just happened and what he meant, what the Imam was trying to say. And if he was actually a slave of Allah, he would have obeyed his master. He would have obeyed the commands of his Lord. You know what happened? Bishop was barefoot. He jumped out of his seat and ran after the Imam in the middle of the night and repented at the feet, repented at the hands of the Imam alayhi salam from this word. And it said he never wore shoes after that day. From that day, he never wore shoes again. He became a monk. He became a monk. And so after that day, you know what they started to call him? Bishr al-Hafi. One word. Changed his life. The internal revolution. طيب, Jameel. What about the second one? The why. Why are you revolting? Why are you changing? Why do I want to change myself? Why am I having an internal revolution? What's prompting me to do so? Why? Why change? You know what the answer to that question is? Very straightforward question, or very straightforward answer. Very straightforward. And I'm not saying it for people to lose hope. No, but it's the reality. Hard truth. Hard truth. You know what it is? The why is for this concept called eternity. Eternity. What do you mean by eternity? Eternal bliss or eternal harm? We choose this one or that one. Simply put, the reason why I need to change and revolt in myself is for eternity. We were created for eternity. In the hadiths, we are told we were not created for this world. We're not created to become nothing. We are created lil baqa, for eternity. But which kind of eternity? That's my choice. It's my choice. What prompts me to become a better person, a better Muslim? Eternity. Eternity. Infinity. Where I'm going to end up for eternity. That's it. That's it. Want me to give you an example of what eternity actually means so you can fathom what we're trying to say? So I can fathom what I'm trying to say. I'll give you an example of what eternity is. Imagine I took you to the Sahara Desert and I wrapped your hands so tight, both hands. I kept them separate, but I wrapped them very, very tight so that you can't get your fingers out. And I told you, listen to what I need you to do. I need you to sit here and count the grains of sand. Count the grains of sand in just this 1 kilometer. Okay, not 1 kilometer. Put 1 kilometer aside. 1 meter square. With your wrapped hands, I need you to count the grains of sand. That's what eternity means. Eternity. That, my brothers and sisters, is the why. What am I going to do with myself? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to end up? What? Education, beliefs, Islam, what it calls for, the message behind it. The why? Eternity. I do it for my eternal life later. Where do I want to end up? Ultimately, it's my choice. Ultimately, my brothers and sisters, it's my choice. Sallu ala Muhammad. This is the revolution of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam. And these were just some of the events. Inshallah, we're going to continue the events later on. Until Imam al-Hussain leaves Medina. We're going to continue those events later on, inshallah. This is a 2-part lecture. It's a 2-part discussion, rather. This is the revolution of Abi Abdullah. This is how it began. This is how it began. It didn't begin 10 days before he was killed. Nor did it begin a month before he was killed, alayhi salam, or martyred. Nor did it even begin a year before he was martyred. It began years. And you can argue 2 years. Because this sermon of Imam al-Hussain was 2 years before Muawiyah died. So 2.5-ish years. Imam al-Hussain began with this. Until ultimately Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam had to leave Medina. He didn't leave alone. He left with his family, with his women, with his children. Why? Because he was going to be killed. He was going to be martyred. He was going to become a shaheed. And his family were going to take the torch and spread the message. His women were going to be safe because they were women. And they were going to take the torch of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam and strike the hearts that have been killed. Strike the eyes that went blind. Strike the hearts. Strike the minds that were asleep. Allow the people to see what Muawiyah, what Yazid, what the oppressors have done to the progeny of their own Prophet Muhammad. And so he took his women, except one. There was one person who didn't come with Imam al-Hussain. A young girl by the name of Fatima al-Alila. A young girl by the name of Fatima al-Alila. Narrations say Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam got his family members ready. He got them ready for their departure from Medina. All of them except this young 5-year-old girl. Or even younger, maybe a little older, very young girl. Why couldn't she go with Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam? Because she was sick. Alila, the sick one. She wasn't able to go. So where did she stay? She stayed with Salama alayhi salam, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. She stayed back with Salama and had to see her family leave. As her family left and were walking away from her, Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam knows this will be the last time he will see his Medina. Last time he will see his grandfather's grave. The last time he will see his young Fatima. As he's walking and as the horses are moving through the streets, he hears a voice behind him. He hears a voice behind him saying, يا أهل انتظروني Oh family, wait for me. The Imam turns around only to see his young daughter Fatima calling from behind him. The Imam ordered Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas to stop the caravan. He said to her, Bunayya Fatima, أما أوصيتك بالبقاء في الدار. Daughter Fatima, did I not tell you to stay in the house? She said to him, بلى يا أبتاه ولكني لما رأيت الدار خالية منك أظلمت الدنيا في عيني فلا تتركني وحدي يا أبتاه. Oh yes, oh father, but when I felt your absence in the house, the world darkened in my eye. So don't leave me by myself in this house, Ya Hussain. He said to her daughter, if I get to the place I intend to stay, I will send you your uncle Abu al-Fadl. I'll send you your uncle Abbas or your brother Ali al-Akbar, and they'll bring you to us. She said to him, Ya Abata, O my father, Inna nafsi tuhaddithuni an la liqa'a bikum ba'da hadha al-yawm. No, O father, my soul is telling me that I'll never meet you after this day. I'll never see you after this day. Look what she says. She says to him, at least keep my brother Abdullah al-Radi' with me. It's as if she knows what will happen to him on that day. It's as if she knows he will be slaughtered with an arrow. It's as if she knows he will die thirsty. It's as if she knows she will never see Abdullah al-Radi' again. She keeps on waiting for her father in Medina until Bishr ibn Hadlam enters Medina. Look how she finds out about her father's death. Bishr ibn Hadlam comes into Medina months after Imam al-Hussain left the city. He enters Medina and goes to the center of the city and screams, Ya ahla Yathrib la muqama lakum biha قتل الحسين فأدمعي مدراره الجسم منه مضرج بكربلاء والرأس منه على القنا يدار. Oh, people of Yathrib, there's no reason for you to stay here. Hussein has been killed, so my tears flow for his killing. His body lies in Karbala covered with blood, and his head is carried on the spear, taken around from country to country. Imagine hearing that your father has died in this way after waiting him for months and months. Imagine hearing that he was killed thirsty. Imagine hearing that his head was cut. Imagine hearing that your baby brother was slaughtered in the middle of the desert. This was one daughter of Abu Abdullah al-Hussain. But how can anyone forget about Ruqayyah and what happened to her after the killing of Imam al-Hussain? After the death of the Imam, the enemies took the family to Damascus. On the way, this young girl was constantly asking for her father, Imam al-Hussain. In Damascus, they were imprisoned in one of the ruins of Damascus near the castle of Yazid. One night, as they were sleeping in the ruins, Ruqayyah falls asleep and sees Imam al-Hussain in her dreams. She sees him. He was not bloody, nor was he hurt. His head was still on his body. His face shined like the moon. And she saw herself sitting in the lap of the Imam. And he was wiping the head of Ruqayyah. Suddenly she wakes up, only to see herself in the ruins, a captive and sleeping on the cold, hard ground. When she realizes this, she screams, Ayna Abi, ائتوني بأبي الآن قد رأيته الآن كان معي. Where's my father? Give me my father. I just saw him. He was just here with me right now. Yazid from the castle wakes up to the crying of Ruqayyah and the crying of the woman and the children. When they heard Ruqayyah's voice, he wakes up and says, what are these noises that deprived me of my sweet sleep? They replied, one of Hussein's daughters asking for her father. So look what he says. He says, وَيْلَكُمْ خُذُوا لَهَا رَأْسَ أَبِيهَا لِتَتَسَلَّى بِهِ. Woe unto you. Take her father's head so that she can feel the comfort of Hussein. The servant came with the head of Imam al-Hussain in a bowl, and the bowl was covered with a cloth. When Ruqayyah saw the bowl, she turned to her aunt Zainab and said, Amma, la uridu ta'ama. Aunt, I don't want food or water. I want my father, Hussein. The man came to her and uncovered the bowl. She saw the head of Imam al-Hussein. But it wasn't the head that she saw in her dreams. It was the head covered with blood. It was the head that was covered with the blood of Abi Abdullah. She kissed the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussain and she said to him, Abba ya Abba, man alladhi qata'a waridik? أبا يا أبا من الذي خضبك بدماك. Father, who was the one who cut your throat? Father, who was the one who dyed your beard? Father, who was the one who made me an orphan? She kept crying for the Imam until she became silent. Ajarakumullah. Imam al-Sajjad sees this and turns to his aunt and says to her, عم ارفعيها فإنها ماتت. Aunt, raise her off my father's head, for she has died. They touched Sayyida Ruqayyah only to find her dead. They lost the Imam, they lost Ali al-Akbar, they lost al-Radi', and now they lost Ruqayyah. Narrations say they took the body of Sayyida Ruqayyah to be washed. They put the small body on the table to begin washing the blessed body of Sayyida Ruqayyah. All of a sudden, the woman washing the body backs away from the table and says, I'm not washing this child. Her body is blue. I don't want to catch whatever disease she died from. Hearing this, Sayyida Zainab cries and says, her body didn't turn blue from a disease. Tayyib, why? Her body became blue from the whips. Her body became blue from the men hitting my young Ruqayyah. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب سينقلبون. أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. يا الله, we ask you by the right of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, accept this majlis from us, Ya Allah. Accept our a'mal, Ya Allah. Accept our deeds, Ya Allah. Forgive us for our sins, Ya Allah. Make us from those who learn from Abi Abdullah al-Hussain's revolution. Make us from those who educate ourselves by Abi Abdullah al-Hussain. Make us from those who walk in the footsteps of Imam al-Hussain, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Let's turn to Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman alayhi salam together and recite Dua al-Faraj in one voice. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kun liwalika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل. Let's recite Surah Al-Fatiha للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والشهداء والعلماء. Before it, aloud, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you, Sheikh, for the enlightening lecture. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight's session, and make sure you tune in tomorrow evening at 9:30 p.m. We look forward to your attendance, and with that, tonight's session is ending. See you tomorrow, inshallah.